I never thought I'd be the guy sharing a story like this, but here I am. It all started on what should have been the best night of my life, our anniversary. My wife, Sarah, and I had planned a quiet dinner at that fancy place downtown, the one with the dim lighting and that weirdly expensive wine list. We'd been together for years, and I'd thought I knew everything there was to know about her. Turns out I was dead wrong. The night was perfect at first. We sat in that candle-lit booth, the smell of roasted garlic and red wine filling the air. We joked, we laughed. I remember feeling grateful for the years we'd shared. Then midway through dinner, something shifted. I caught her glance at her phone a little too long, a look of nervousness I'd never seen before. I brushed it off as just a message from a friend, but my stomach sank. Something about her posture changed. She suddenly looked tense, like she was hiding something. As she excused herself to the bathroom, I couldn't resist checking her phone. I didn't want to, but my curiosity got the better of me. I unlocked her screen, and what I saw made my blood run cold. A string of texts, flirtatious, intimate, clearly meant for someone else. And the name, Mark, my best friend, my closest confidant, the guy I'd trusted more than anyone. I read her messages over and over, feeling my fists tighten. She was planning something, I could tell. The way they talked, like they'd been doing this for months secretly. Their plans to take everything from me, to ruin what I worked so hard for. I couldn't believe it. My wife, my best friend, conspiring behind my back. I put her phone back on the table, my mind racing. I felt like I'd swallowed a rock. My palms sweat, my stomach twisted into knots. I wanted to confront her then, but I also knew I had to keep my cool. This was just the beginning. I needed a plan, a way to find out just how deep this betrayal went and how I was going to wipe the floor with them. When she came back, her face was flushed, a fake smile plastered on her lips. "Everything okay?" I asked, voice tight, barely holding back my rage. She fidgeted, avoiding eye contact. "Yeah, just tired, long day." "Long day." I shot back, feeling the weight of her lies. "That's funny because I just saw some texts from Mark about us, about destroying everything I've built." Her eyes widened and her hand trembled as she reached for her napkin. "That's not what it looks like." "Oh, really?" I said, voice rising. "Because it looks like you've been planning this for months. While I was working my ass off to make a life for us, you were sneaking around with my best friend. How long has this been going on?" She looked away, silent. That was the moment I knew I couldn't let this slide. I had to get out, but not before I made damn sure they'd regret ever crossing me. I just didn't know how much worse things were about to get. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was personal. And I had a plan forming, one that would hit them where it hurt, hard. After that night, I didn't sleep much. My mind kept spinning, replaying every moment, every word, every glance they exchanged in secret. I felt the weight of their betrayal pressing down on me like a stone. The worst part, I trusted Sarah and Mark. The very people I thought had my back had been stabbing me in the back all along. I knew I had to act, but I also had to be smart. Confronting her again or accusing them outright wouldn't cut it. I needed evidence, a way to expose them fully without tipping my hand just yet. That night I stayed up, obsessively planning, all while my stomach clenched harder with every passing hour. The next morning I started looking for the clues I'd missed. I needed more than just a few texts. I needed records, proof. First thing, I went to my computer. I started digging through emails, social media, even hidden folders. That's when I found it, the real smoking gun. A series of private emails between Sarah and Mark discussing how they'd divide everything once I was out of the picture. They'd even talked about how to cover their tracks, how to make it seem like I was the one responsible for my own downfall. I felt the floor shift beneath me. My hands went cold and I forced myself to breathe slowly. I printed everything I found. That was my ammunition. I needed a backup plan, something to make sure they couldn't spin their story. I also made a point of installing keyloggers and monitoring software on my devices, just in case they tried to erase or manipulate the evidence. I didn't trust anyone anymore. I couldn't ignore my gut feeling that they might escalate. I decided I had to be prepared for anything, even worse revelations. Meanwhile, I started talking to a lawyer just to see what my options were, what I could do legally if I decided to call out their scheme publicly. The thought of losing everything made my throat tight. My house, my savings, my reputation, all potentially gone if I wasn't careful. In the meantime, I kept pretending everything was normal. I called her, suggested we meet for dinner again, tried to keep her off balance. I needed her to trip up again, reveal more. She was suspicious but played her part well, acting innocent even as her phone buzzed constantly with Mark's messages. I noticed her eyes darting to her purse when she thought I wasn't looking. That was my sign. They were still communicating, still scheming. One afternoon, she forgot her phone on the kitchen counter. I saw the lock screen light up with a new message from Mark. "Tonight's the night, babe. We take it all." My stomach sank again. The plan was in motion. They thought they'd time it perfectly, sneakily taking what was mine. I kept my composure, but inside I was boiling with fury. I knew I had enough. Enough to finally put an end to this charade. I sat in my car that evening, staring at her house, planning the next move. I'd caught them, gathered enough proof, and now I had to decide how to execute my revenge. I wasn't just going to kick them out or call it quits. I wanted to make sure they paid one way or another. The question was, how do you punish betrayal that cuts this deep? I was starting to realize that revenge isn't just about retaliation, it's about sending a message, making them understand exactly how much they'd messed up, how badly they'd underestimated me. That night I sat in the dark, clutching my phone, knowing everything was about to change. And the moment I'd been planning for was just around the corner. The next few days felt like walking on a wire. I was meticulous, trying to control every move, every word I said, knowing that one slip-up could blow everything. I kept gathering more evidence, making sure I had all my bases covered. It was a quiet kind of tension, the kind that makes your skin itch and your stomach churn. I could feel that the clock was ticking, and I needed to be ready. I also started planting little things around the house, nothing obvious, just enough to remind them I was aware of their game. A small camera on the bookshelf, a USB drive hidden in the toolbox I rarely used, and a note on my desk that only I would understand. These were my insurance, my silent witnesses. I didn't want to just catch them. I wanted to hit hard and fast without giving them a chance to prepare. Meanwhile, Sarah started acting even more anxious. She was avoiding me, her eyes darting around with every conversation. I could see her trying to keep her composure, but the cracks were showing. That fake smile she'd worn on our anniversary, gone. Now it looked forced, like she was carrying a weight she couldn't bear. I pointedly asked her about plans for the weekend, casually but with enough edge to make her sweat. "Are you hiding something?" I asked, voice low and steady. She hesitated, then forced a laugh. "You're imagining things, just tired, that's all." "Oh, I don't think so," I said, leaning in slightly. "I know you're up to something, and I will find out what it is." That night, I set my plan in motion. I knew the time had come to confront her publicly, loudly, and with evidence in hand. I arranged to meet my lawyer that afternoon and then called Sarah, telling her I had something important to discuss. She agreed, probably thinking I was about to back down or play nice. Little did she know. When she arrived at the cafe, I was already there waiting. She looked nervous, clutching her purse tightly. I could see her trying to look casual, but her eyes betrayed her. I didn't waste time. "I've got everything," I said, sliding the printed emails across the table. "All the messages, the plans, everything you and Mark have been working on. I know about your little scheme to take everything I own, to betray me the way you did with your silence all these years." Her face drained of color. She froze, then tried to laugh it off. "That's not true. You're overreacting." "No," I shot back. "You've been lying to me from the beginning, playing your game behind my back. I've had enough of your lies, Sarah." Mark, too. "You thought you could screw me over, but I'm not the fool you believed I was." She looked down, her hands trembling. "You don't understand. It's not what it looks like." "Oh, I understand all too well," I said. "And now I have a choice, to let you walk away or to shut this down once and for all. I'm choosing the second." I stood up, pulling out the folder of evidence. "You're finished. This ends tonight." Her eyes flicked wildly. "You can't do this. I love him. I love Mark." "Love? Yeah, right," I said bitterly. "You love the idea of my life more. Well, here's the thing. I've got your plans, your lies, and your broken trust. And I'm about to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you really are." I pulled out my Phone ready to go live on social media to tell everyone what she'd done, to strip her reputation bare if I had to. That's when she broke down, tears streaming. She begged, made promises, but I'd heard enough. The damage was done. I told her to leave, handed her her purse, and watched her stumble out of that cafe, defeated and crying. I sat there for a moment, feeling the cold weight of victory. I'd taken back control, but I knew the fallout was just beginning. The next step was to seal the deal legally and shut her out completely. I'd prepared the paperwork, the final cut, the decisive move to end it all. That night, I packed her things into boxes, took her keys, and handed them over with a cold smile. I watched her walk out the door for good. And as I closed the door behind her, I realized something. Sometimes you have to lose everything to get your dignity back. I'd finally done it, shut the door on betrayal, and started rebuilding my life from the ashes. The days after she left felt surreal. The house was unnervingly quiet, like a hollow shell of the chaos I'd just ended. It was strange waking up without that weight pressed on my chest, no more her voice or the sound of Mark's messages pinging in the middle of the night. Still, I knew I wasn't done. If I wanted to truly reclaim what's mine, I had to go all the way. No half measures. I sat down with a cup of black coffee, the bitter taste grounding me. My hand trembled slightly as I looked at the pile of documents I'd collected, emails, texts, screenshots, even her bank statements showing suspicious transactions. Every piece of evidence was an anchor, proof that I hadn't just been naive or unlucky. I'd been betrayed by people I trusted most. That realization hit hard, but it also fueled my resolve. I decided to consult with my lawyer again. I needed to understand what steps I could take to protect myself legally, especially considering the betrayal involved financial deception. I already had enough evidence to file for divorce on the grounds of infidelity and fraud. I wanted her out of my life permanently, not just emotionally but financially too. The thought of her walking away with a piece of my hard-earned savings made my stomach churn. I wouldn't let her get away with it. The lawyer's advice was straightforward. I could start the divorce process, including a claim to freeze any joint accounts, and pursue a legal settlement to prevent her from taking more than she was entitled to. I also learned that I could sue for damages, considering the emotional and financial harm she'd caused. It was a relief to finally have a clear plan, but I knew the fight wasn't over yet. More importantly, I needed to rebuild my sense of control. I started changing my habits, canceling her subscriptions, changing passwords, and even blocking her number. I blocked Mark too. The thought of him thinking he could just walk back into my life was infuriating. I was done second-guessing myself, done feeling powerless. Now, it was about making sure they understood I was serious. One thing I did was take a walk through the house, now empty and cold. Every corner reminded me of her. The way she'd used to laugh at my jokes, how she'd brush past me in the hallway like I was invisible. I clenched my fists. I'd let her go, but I wouldn't forget. Not for a second. She might have taken her things. But I was taking everything back, my dignity, my peace, my future. That evening, I went through my bank statements again. The suspicious transactions from her account caught my eye. I was meticulous, calling the bank, reporting fraud, and requesting detailed records. It was clear she'd been trying to siphon money, maybe to fund her new life with Mark. That was the last straw. I filed a report for financial abuse, knowing it would help me in the long run. I also reached out to a couple of friends for emotional support. I needed people who understood what I'd been through. One told me, "You're better off without her. She was a snake, and now you're finally rid of her venom." Hearing that helped, but I still felt the ache of betrayal deep in my chest. It was strange, anger, relief, sadness, all at once. The final thing I did that night was to start planning my next steps. I wanted to take back control of my life. I bought a new phone, changed my locks, and even signed up for some therapy. I knew I'd need to heal, both physically and mentally. But more than anything, I was determined to move forward. Clean and clear of the past. That's when I realized I'd been given a gift, albeit a brutal one. It was a chance to rebuild, to start fresh, and to never let someone betray me like that again. The betrayal had opened my eyes. I had the evidence, the plan, and the mindset. Now, it was just about executing it all and making sure they understood one thing: I wasn't going down without a fight. The weeks that followed felt like a slow burn. I was in full motion, lawyer handling the divorce, the house now officially mine, and my financial accounts being secured. I kept my head down, focused on my work, trying to let the storm settle. But beneath it all, I was brewing something bigger. I knew I had to make a statement, one that would leave no doubt she'd underestimated me, and that I wouldn't be taken for a fool again. One evening, I sat in my apartment, staring at the stack of papers that documented everything: proof of her betrayal, the financial abuse, the deceit. It was a strange mix of relief and anger, the kind of anger that fuels you to do things you never thought you'd consider. I'd already taken back my life, but I wasn't done. I wanted her to feel the sting, to understand exactly what she had lost. I decided to send her a message, nothing confrontational, just enough to get her thinking. I drafted an email, neutral in tone but with enough clarity to make her realize I knew everything. I told her I was aware of her lies, her schemes, and that I was about to take control of my life completely. I said she should consider herself lucky I was choosing to move on quietly, but if she ever tried to contact me again, I'd make sure everyone knew what she'd done. I hit send, then leaned back. The silence was deafening, but I felt a strange sense of empowerment. I was finally taking the upper hand, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. The next day, I made sure every account I owned was locked tight, all passwords changed, all trace of her erased. I knew she might try something, but I was ready. I also reached out to a few local private investigators. Like I said, I wasn't about to leave any stone unturned. If she tried to sneak back into my life or do something reckless, I wanted eyes on her. The investigator confirmed she was trying to start over, moving into a new apartment, trying to rebuild her life. Without me. Good. That's exactly what I wanted. Meanwhile, I kept hearing whispers from friends, people who'd heard about her sudden departure, the lawsuit, the fallout. I'd never been the kind to broadcast my pain, but I wasn't hiding either. I told close friends what happened, how I'd caught her, how I'd fought back. They told me I was brave, but honestly, I just felt exhausted. Betrayal is draining, like carrying a heavy weight you can't put down. One thing I knew for sure: I had to finalize the legal part of everything. I contacted my lawyer to push through the divorce, to make it official. I didn't want her hanging around, trying to claw her way back into my life. I was done with the emotional. I wanted closure, pure and simple. And I wasn't going to let her have the satisfaction of dragging me down. As I signed the final papers, I felt a strange sense of relief, like I'd finally cleared a major obstacle. The house was legally mine now, and the divorce was sealed. From here on out, I'd be building a new life. I started looking for new places, new routines. I wanted to leave all that toxic history behind. That night, I sat on my balcony looking at the city lights. The fire inside me was still burning, but it was tempered by a quiet confidence. I knew she had underestimated my resilience, my ability to bounce back. She thought she could ruin me, but I was still standing. Better, stronger, and ready for whatever came next. The lesson: sometimes betrayal is the wake-up call you need. You just have to be willing to fight for your peace. I was finally doing that, one step at a time. The last few steps weren't glamorous, but they felt necessary. I went to the courthouse, handed over the keys to the house, and filed the final paperwork for the divorce. The judge signed off, and it was over, officially done. I took the original documents, the proof of her lies, and kept them tucked away. Not because I wanted to hold on to anger, but because I knew someday I'd want to remember just how far I'd come. When I handed her the last of her belongings, I did it with a sense of finality. I handed her the keys, looked her straight in the eyes, and said, "This is goodbye. Don't come back." She looked lost, like she thought she could still manipulate her way out of it. But I was done playing her game. I knew now I was in control, and I was never going to let her or Mark pull me under again. Standing there, watching her walk away, I felt that familiar rush of adrenaline, the kind that comes after you fought a battle you didn't even know you were preparing for. I wasn't just ending a relationship. I was reclaiming myself. All that pain, all that betrayal, it sharpened me. It made me realize my worth, my strength. I finally saw the cracks in her lies and understood how much I'd been blinded before. In the weeks that followed, I focused on rebuilding. I threw myself into work, started seeing a therapist, and even enrolled in some new hobbies, things I'd never had time for before. The house was quiet, but now it was my space, filled with my things, my peace. I felt lighter, like I'd shed years of weight from my shoulders. And for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. Looking back, I see how everything happened for a reason. Yes, betrayal hurts, badly, but it also forces you to see who you really are. I learned that trust isn't something to give lightly, and that sometimes you have to go through hell to find your way back. It wasn't easy, but I survived, and I came out stronger on the other side. So to anyone out there going through something similar, know this. Betrayal cuts deep, but it also reveals your resilience. You're capable of more than you think. Don't waste time mourning what's lost. Instead, focus on what you're going to build from here. Your life isn't over, it's just beginning anew, better and sharper than before. And as I close this chapter, I remind myself that every scar is a story, proof that I survived, that I fought, and that I'm finally free.